Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Today is part one of two with Jeff Foster, a runner from the 70s with a magnificent career from 800 meters up to 100 miles. We'll talk about his time in high school, his running in Edinboro, and afterwards. And we're so much to talk about, there will be a second episode after this one. Enjoy. I'm a Western Pennsylvania kid in District 6, and I started running the year after you won states cross country.
Oh, okay.
So I started competing in 74.
Yeah. 73 is when I won the cross country thing.
As a kid coming up, then you're the first name I saw to say, who won last year?
I looked and said, well, Mel Boyd won last year.
Yeah.
Then I didn't realize he was back again. I thought he graduated. Good. Because I talked to him after the race the year I was ninth. And he talked to me. He says, oh, I was ninth last year. So I left thinking, let's see. He was ninth and won. I'm ninth. I'll win next year. I didn't know he was back the next year.
Did you run against him in the 2 mile?
Yeah, that spring we ran against each other. Well, all those years. He almost lapped me my sophomore year. I didn't know guys could run that fast. I set the school record for our school my sophomore year, and it was feet. He almost lapped me. I was running so fast to try and not get lapped that there was like 4 guys were within a second of each other. And I didn't realize till that last year that was Mel Boyd all these years that I was running against. I just remember a picture in the program of him on the podium for the 2 mile looking very disappointed. So I don't think he won. My sophomore year, he was second. My junior year, he was second. And then my senior year, he won. I felt like I should have won the race. I thought too much in the race. He told me before the race he had lost in his regional and his district meet. He got kicked down at the end. He says, well, I went out too fast each race. I went through the first mile under 4:30. And when we went through the first mile at the state meet, I thought I heard him say 4:26. And I thought, oh, I feel so great. Go ahead, Mel, you're going to collapse again. And then when we went the next lap, I realized it was 4:36. And I let him get too far away from me, and I couldn't reel him back in. He did win that my senior year, and I was second on the track. Oh, let's get people who don't know any of your background. The details are great, but the idea is your image, what it was like to be a runner, what it was like to be very successful in the early 70s, and what the state of running was, where you were, and on your radar. National and international running. What was your take on that? What was your take on yourself? In high school, I didn't have that national view. I just was running. I wanted to be a state champion was really it. I wanted that. That's as much as I knew about running. I think the more I run, the better I'll get, and the better I get, I'll win. I didn't have some really great coaching in high school. My senior year, my cross-country coach was a basketball coach, and he used to ask me, what should we do? I tell him things to do to help me. And I never told the team that. In track season, I had the football coach, and he was trying to get us to do, I don't know what we were doing, calisthenics and things. And I actually had feuds with them. So I was kind of on my own to just run. I just ran. And I think most of the guys I knew then, they maybe had some coaching, but a lot of them were just doing that intuitive training. There was no internet. You didn't really know what was going on everywhere. When I got to college, I realized that a lot of other guys were doing the same thing I was doing. They were just running. And we were only getting fine-tuned once we got to college. High school, was it St. Mary's? It was St. Mary's area high school. How was your team? Were there any other accomplished athletes? No. I was the first state champion, I believe, in any sport. The mentality at our school was win the district meet, get to the state meet. And I wanted to get to the state meet and perform. I think I'm the only one that ever medaled up until after I left. Following me, people started to perform. But up to that point, it was kind of a district mentality. And usually went to a state meet and everybody goofed off. At the track meet, they all got eliminated the first day in the trials. and I was the only one in the final on the Saturday. It was kind of a shock. The only other runner in that area for me, the District 9, was Terry Weil, had been a state champion a year ahead of me in the other division. And I kind of gauged myself on him. Whatever he was doing, I knew was good. But it's kind of just intuitive training. There weren't books. I never even heard of Runner's World till I got out of college, I think, or in college. I knew about track and field news when I was in college, but other than that, there just wasn't that available knowledge out there to rely on. And a lot of the guys I met, not so much in college, but even after college, I realized they were just doing the same thing I was doing. They were just running. They just went out and ran.
What was your other athletic stuff? How did you come into the point of saying, okay, I'm a runner?
I think when I became a runner was that day I almost got lapped at the state meet. I thought I was good at my school. Everybody knew I was our 2-mile record holder. I think I ran 10:19 or something. But when I got to the state meet, coming home from that state meet, I said to my coach, I want to run this summer. And he told me, don't do it. You'll just burn out. And I didn't listen to him. I didn't run every day, but I ran that summer. And when I came back that fall, I was a different guy. I had been the number 2 guy and sometimes slipping 3 and 4 in cross country. And that next year, nobody challenged me. And I started crushing course records by 40 seconds. I was a runner then, but it was after almost getting lapped. I came out of that thing and how can these guys be so good? I couldn't believe it. And we had no facilities. You just ran. That when I started my junior year, I was a medalist, and they were both in cross country track. And the senior year, I really was unchallenged, except for that following spring against Mel on the track. Prior to that, I just had my way with running.
So how did you motivate? You weren't going to lose. You probably figured, I've got this. Once you were winning every meet by 40 seconds, how did you maintain your competitiveness?
Again, you got to figure I was running alone. There wasn't anybody really close to me in races until I got to the state. We didn't have a competitive type of season. It wasn't a real strong district. I only got to go to invitationals coming my senior year. In track, I did. I had just that district mentality of running. Back then, we had that rule where in track, you could only run 2 miles or 3 events.
Yep.
I don't know when that changed. I'd run the 2-mile relay, the mile and the half-mile, thinking that's my speed training to do the 2-mile run. I knew I couldn't match those guys in a mile at the state level, but I could run with anybody at the 2-mile.
All right. And cross country then in Pennsylvania was 2.5.
It was 2.5 miles. I just put miles in. I just kept running. I kept thinking more is better. It worked. I kept getting stronger, and I ran a lot of hills. I just remember the coach telling me, don't do that. You'll burn out. And I didn't know what do you mean? I didn't understand. Like, what do you mean? All of a sudden I was out of their league. Nobody knew what to do with me. I enjoyed running too. It wasn't just that. I wanted to win, but I enjoyed running as well. Just the joy of running. And that probably is what made it easy for me, because I didn't have treadmills back then. Right. I didn't have an indoor track. It didn't matter what the weather was. I just enjoyed being out there. And that was my motivation. I just love it.
How much attention did you raise? Local press, regional press?
Locally, I got a lot. My high school cross-country coach, who asked me what we should do, actually was a pretty good writer. And he used to write up the articles in the paper for me. But regionally, I seemed to get along with everybody. Even though I was kind of introverted, I got along with all the other coaches, maybe even better than mine. And the other towns around there, like Bradford, which was about 40 miles away from us, the Du Bois paper, which is another 40 the other directions, those papers wrote about me, and they were real kind to me. They wrote me up, and I got along with those coaches real well, too. They sometimes would give me little tips. When I'd show up to a meet, they knew I was better than their runner, and they tell me something. One of the coaches invited me to do a scrimmage meet if I could get to it. The New York State champion, I think it was Brian Hall. He said they were doing a scrimmage, and maybe I could come up and run with them. And I was really naive about running. I didn't know anything. I just knew I ran.
Yeah.
They were really nice to me. They were always trying to give me some advice and helping. And that regionally, I had a lot of attention.
What about then your outlook for university? How were you in academics, and what happened with you contacting colleges and getting where you went?
I hated school. If I hadn't been running, I know I would have dropped out of school. I hated school from first day of first grade.
Wow.
I never liked school. My grades were mediocre. What kept me in school was when I started running. I used to think, well, I think I can drop out at age 16.
Wow.
And then I started running, and I thought, well, that's the only way I could run is to stay in school. And
Yeah.
that kind of kept me in school. I didn't even think about college until it was probably somewhere in my junior year. College coaches started contacting me, and I didn't even know about that. Oh, I guess I could keep running.
Right.
And then I got recruited. Going into my senior year, a lot of coaches either flew me somewhere or came to visit me or called me every night. I didn't even know how to act to it. Nobody in my family had ever dealt with that. I used to like tell them I'm not home. They call, the same coach would be calling every night. I'd say, tell them I'm not here. I didn't really have a grasp on all of it, how to play the recruiting game. I just wanted to run. And I
Yeah.
used to say, I want to finish track season before I think about it. And they wanted to hook you in early.
Sure.
I started knowing I wanted to go to college because I wanted to keep running. I remember going to Penn State and they took me to a football game, and I didn't care about football at all. And I'm thinking, here I am at Beaver Stadium, and there's 60, 70,000 people, and everybody's excited. And I'm thinking I would have just as soon gone to a record shop or a comic book store as to be at the football game. But they were trying to recruit me and show me the school. I thought, this is Penn State. I don't want to go there. I
Wow.
wasn't interested in those certain things. And some of the schools, they walk me around the academics, and I don't care. I just want to run.
Wow. Didn't know their audience. You ran at Penn State because the PIAA state meets were there. back then.
Right. Yep. Exactly. It was at Penn State that I won the state title. And then the track meet was there too at that time. Yes.
Did you know Bob Stackow? He won state Division B a year or two later. He went in the Army, and he ran for 20 years with the Army. And
I don't
that's what,
recognize it. I don't
okay.
recognize it.
Just another way to go. Did military come after you?
They did. The first school I went to was a private school. I got kicked out because my hair was too long. I got suspended till I got a cut, and it wasn't even long. And my second year, I transferred to a public school, and really, that was more important to me than anything, to let my hair grow. I didn't care about anything else. I wanted to let my hair grow, and then I wanted to run. I don't know if I would have fit the military standard.
Yeah.
Because my hair was over my shoulders. And I used to have coaches go, you can't run with your hair that long. And my teammates would go, he's the state champion. They came to recruit me. Again, I didn't get connected. So what? I mean, maybe if they had explained more, it might have been better for my running. I don't know. But my lifestyle was contrary to that conformity. I was not a conformist. And I don't know that I would have fit in that style. But they did. Yeah, they did come and talk to me.
How did you hook up then with Edinboro?
That was an accident. Even to start running, my closest friend, which was also my cousin, Lee Foster, we did everything together since we were babies. He said to me one day when I was in high school, he said, do you want to go out for the track team? And I said, sure. What's track? He goes, I'm not sure. I think you run like the cross country course. So we went to the first meeting and we said, we want to sign up for cross country. And they go, this is track season. You can run a 220, a 448. I didn't even know what those numbers meant. And they go, if you like distance, you can run the 2 mile. And then we both ran the 2 mile. To jump ahead, he was at Edinboro already when I was a senior in high school. So I had visited him at Edinboro, but I wasn't interested in going there. Coach Watson sent me some letters. I threw them aside. I wasn't interested. I didn't connect there. And already, I think I was planning to go to Virginia Tech. They flew me down there and I liked their indoor facility. All I could think, I'm going a little farther south, get out of the weather. They've got a nice facility. I can run. And I went to a summer meet and I ran against Mark Latica, who was at Edinboro. And I must have sounded like indecisive because he told Watts he should call me. Coach Watts called me. And I said, I'm not interested. He goes, do you want to come see the school? I said, I've seen it. I'm not interested. He goes, well, can I come visit you? I said, knock yourself out, come visit. So he came to visit. My parents loved him. I don't know what it was about him, but he ate dinner with us. And my parents thought he was the funniest guy. And I still didn't want to go. I was like, I'm not interested. When we walked out to his car, He stopped and he turned around and he said to me, if you come to Edinboro, we'll win a national championship. And I was hooked. As soon as he said that,
Wow.
he said, if you come, we will win the national championship. And I said, I'm coming. That was the end of it. We didn't win that first year, and I was really disappointed. I felt like maybe I went to the wrong school that first year. Nothing seemed to click.
Wow.
But boy, that second year, we did win the national championship, and that was it. A lot of that stuff's foggy that from those years ago, but we walked out to his car, and when he said that, that was it. I won't, and that's where it ended up.
Cool story.
So the guys I met there, it's kind of a strange. We were like just a tri-state area bunch of guys from New York and Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, there was no problem with the hair. That team, that team had a lot of long-haired.
My hair's still long. My hair's still long.
Some of us don't have hair anymore, but yeah. And Nika was still there.
Laddie was there. He never was an impact on our cross-country team. But Henry Winger, I'd run against him at the state meet and other meets and invitationals. He was at Edinboro. Kevin Foley was from Ohio. I never knew him before. Mark Muggleton didn't come till the next year. Some of those guys, they were all kind of a local area where maybe I should have known them, other than Henry. I knew Henry. And Henry and I kind of stayed in touch then, too, over the years. Even up into 2010, I was trying to get into the 5 decades of sub-3-hour marathons. Right. I had the 4 decades and I couldn't get the 5th one. And I was communicating with Henry and he was running some marathons too. And so we still were in touch, but now I haven't probably heard from him now in 10 years at least.
What was he like as a friend? He
was quiet. It seemed like he's just about running too. I had raced against him a lot of times in high school. He seemed like he could run forever. He never got tired, but I could always kick him down. He didn't have enough speed, so if I could stay close to him, I could kick him down. In college, he was tougher. He was a tougher runner. He may have beaten me more than I beat him. The longer the distance went, the better he was. I think if he had run a marathon, he would have been a good one when he was younger. He didn't focus on that.
Did you know about his pacemaker?
Yeah, he had some weird heartbeat. His pulse never got high. And later on, back in the 2000, I contacted him. He told me he had heart surgery and things. So that had always been a kind of a problem for him. Those stories that Muggleton told were true, where we'd do an interval and Watts would take our pulse to see if it was time to start another one. And if he checked Henry, it was like time to go because his heart rate was down. And we were all huffing and puffing and his heart rate was already down. That's true, yeah. Instead of a timed interval, he'd check your pulse. And if it was too high, he'd say you need to rest longer. And so don't go for Henry. Stay away.
Do you have any memory about why you didn't win the national championship that first year?
I don't know. That first year, we thought we had it. And collectively, we didn't run well, except for Foley. Kevin Foley was an All American that year. And Kevin was a smart runner. I think we teased each other a lot, but he's one of the smartest guys I ever ran against who could really calculate down to getting his best when it counted. And he got his best at the national meets all the time. He may not have been running well all season, but boy, at the end, he was there. And he was the only one that ran up to his potential that first year. I expected more. I was kind of down about it. I almost thought about transferring. I was like, I guess I don't belong here. But that next year, we were tough. We beat Eastern New Mexico with all their canyons. Yeah. So that was a good year for us. I remember Henry was an All-American that year. Kevin was too. Kevin didn't run his best, but Muggleton was on that team. And Dalvin Baylor. I think there's 4 of us were All-Americans on that team that year. We beat Eastern New Mexico the year Mike Boyd was the winner there.
Right. Yeah. How was the shifting up to the longer distance?
Longer. I liked longer. When I was in high school, all I thought about was 2 mile. So when I got to college, I think that's what I wanted to run. When here it was an indoor event, I didn't realize. I didn't know anything about running. I didn't know who anybody was. I knew Jim Ryan. I knew Jerry Lindgren. And I didn't know anybody else's name. I knew Frank Shorter. Other than that, I had no knowledge of what was really going on out there. Those guys kind of teased and educated me once I got to college about things I should have known. But the longer the race got, I liked the longer stuff. I had limited leg speed. I was never going to be a miler. I even knew that in high school. I'm not going to be a miler. I don't have that kind of speed.
How was college? Did you like it better than high school?
I hated college, every minute of it, but I thought I got to run. That's the only thing. I was so out of my element as far as academics. I knew running was easy. I hated everything. I hated the arrogance of the professors. I hated everything about it. You know, it was like first grade, although I just hated school, but it was how I got to run. I ran a marathon when I was 19. I won it in Mechanicsburg in like 2:27. I started realizing that maybe that's who I am. I'm beyond the college. Those shorter events, maybe I'm not good enough. Although as we went into that junior year, the second year, I really thought I didn't even have any question. I'd win the national title. I figured it's mine. It's mine to take. And then I didn't win it. I was so distraught after that. When I came back, I quit going to classes and I didn't even register for the next semester. Wow. I just stopped. I'm done with school. After the season was over, there's a lot of folklore about what I was doing. I was doing a lot of running, but I had a cartilage buildup on my knee from twisting. In one of our training, I fell down a couple of times. And at the end of the season, I didn't find out till I had an x-ray that this cartilage buildup on my knee that had been bothering me. And I just gave it. I'm done. I can't go back and do this anymore. I quit. I didn't go back to school. I went and got a construction job. I ran just because I like to run once in a while, but I didn't do any training. And it was almost 2 years later, I started running again. I wanted to run, and I had a job working the night shift in a powder metal plant where there was copper fiber floating in the air, you know. And I was running like 2 back-to-back 28-mile weeks. And I was like, what did I do? I'm no good anymore. And then all of a sudden I hit a 100-mile week. And then next week I ran 110. And next week 115. And next week 121. And I just kept going. I hit 150. I just kept adding them up.
Were you running all by yourself?
I was just running by myself. There was this 2.1-mile loop by my house. And every week I go, I think I'll run an extra loop. I think I'll run an extra loop. I ran 6 last week. I think I'll run 7. I'll run 8. I'll run 9. I'm running all these miles, and I looked in the runner's world, and there was the Pittsburgh Press Marathon. And I think I'll go run it. I hadn't run a race in over 2 years. I wonder if I can run 2:27 again. And I went and finished second to Benji Durden. I ran 2:21. And the time was in the qualifying time for Olympic trials, but outside the window to qualify. And I thought, oh, wow, I can run. I can still run. I probably could have still been in Edinboro even. But I can still run. I started thinking I'm going to get a trials time. And in those days, I never drank when I ran. Tried it once and I got side ache, so I never drank. Cold days, I ran well, and hot days, I did not run well. Right. So the next year, I went to the Maryland Marathon, and it was a cold, windy day. I won the Maryland Marathon in sub 2:20, 2:19. I beat some really good people like Jukka Tavola from Finland and Marty Vainio, who I think then it was the 4th fastest 10,000 meter runner. A bunch of other Olympic trials qualifiers. I won by 2 minutes.
Did anybody know you?
Nobody knew me. After I won, they're pressing us. How come you weren't at the press conference? I said, I was a nobody. Nobody knew who I was. After that, Nike called me, and Neil Cohen, that I don't know if you know about Neil, but Neil had the Allegheny Nike team going, and Neil really helped take care of me, and Nike did. That Allegheny Nike team, I was closer with them maybe than I was at Edinboro. At Edinboro, we ran together and then we didn't, but we socialized in that Allegheny Nike team, and I stayed in touch maybe with some of those guys steadily. Malcolm East was on that team, and we trained together then in Pittsburgh. We were working at the same store. In fact, it was back when stores wanted to have runners at their stores, and then just to have you in the store. I ran the Olympic trials then that spring. Again, I was kind of naive. I went to races and I was intimidated. I remember going to a 10-mile race at Cherry Blossom and thinking, if I could just break 50 minutes, I'll think I'm a runner. And I ran 48:06. And I was scared of the guy. I'm running next to Bill Rogers for a while. I can't run with him. I got to back off because he's good and I'm just me. I felt like I got to run well under 48 that day, except I was intimidated by the field. I knew that the boycott was that year. I wanted to go to 10,000 meters, but The boycott meant why. The marathon was in Buffalo. It was easy to get to. And the 10,000 was in Eugene. Why go there for nothing? And it looked like road racing was where you should be. Nike was big. I ran 2:15 at the trials, and things just kept getting better for me there. I went to a lot of races that summer. Went to the Nike Marathon, ran 2:14, but I was running 2:12, maybe even high 2:11s, and it started to get hot. And those last 3 miles after I was running 5:0s, I ran my last 3 miles like 5:35, 5:40. I didn't drink. I needed that. I needed somebody to tell me how to do that. I was too stubborn. I did 2:14, felt great.
Yeah.
But then I think all the things I loved about having sponsorship, also there was a lot of pressure. We need you to run a race. And I needed more rest. I could handle the high mileage. I came right out of that race and ran the great race, the 10,000. I went to the Golden Moccasin 15 mile. I went down to Myrtle Beach for something. There was too many races. They were beating me up. And I eventually started having some injuries. I remember seeing Dave Martin, used to be the Olympic Development Center, the head physiologist. And he said, you got to stop running. You need a rest. There's too many races. I had planned to go to Honolulu to try to win the marathon. And he was there. He said, don't do it. And so I ran with John Anderson, former Olympian and Boston Marathon winner back in the early 70s. We both just ran 10 miles and stopped because we were there. But I couldn't run. I needed to back off. And then the following year, I could still run the sub 220 marathon. It wasn't hard. But all these races, I finally had this injury, a separation of rectus abdominis muscles. I saw doctors from San Francisco to Boston. They all said, well, there's an experimental surgery at best if you really need to run.
Wow.
I said, well, I don't need to run that badly. So I stopped running again for a while.
The knee surgery, was that a complete success?
Medication that was supposed to reduce that, whatever it is, cartilage buildup or calcium buildup. I saw the x-ray and the doctor showed me, look, he gave me medication and I took it. I didn't really run after that. I ran for fun afterwards. Like I might go, I think I'll go out for a 2-mile run or something, but I didn't train until I hit those 100-mile weeks. 2 years later, I really wasn't running consistently. And then when I started doing that, I was like a fanatic of running. I went several years of averaging 100-mile weeks.
Did you log anything?
Logged it all the miles, yes. I didn't do any speed until after I qualified for the trials. And then Malcolm said to me one day, why don't you come to the track? And there was a bunch of guys, and we were like almost all Allegheny Nike guys, but they met on a Tuesday night at pit indoors or outdoors. We'd find a track somewhere around to go. And it was an every Tuesday night thing. And it was the first time I started doing any kind of speed was after that. Otherwise, I had been just doing mileage up to that point.
What was the sponsorship like? It's cool insight you had about the pressure to race, getting pushed as much. What else was involved in being sponsored?
It wasn't anybody's fault. I appreciate everything, but I was a big guy. I didn't recover like the little 115-pound runners. When I'd run a marathon, I needed time before I'd run another one. I could train because I'd back off my training easy. I do easy running, but if I had a race, you can't race easy. You got to race fast. So let's see, I forgot what you said.
Asking about what's involved in that.
So I got all the shoes and equipment that I wanted anytime, anything I wanted. At that time, you knew everybody at Nike. You knew all the guys. It wasn't like it is now. Everybody knew everybody. There was a lot of races that they'd either take you to, pay your way to, or make sure. They did all the arranging. I got invitations I did turn down, like to go to Europe, and I said, it's too much. I just can't. But I went and ran China. They just took care of it. We'll schedule. You don't have to think. We'll go pick your ticket up and they'll meet you at the airport. So those things were nice. I got all the equipment. It didn't cost me anything. Sometimes it felt like I was even making money if you got per diems. They were supportive, but there was just that little bit like, I guess I needed to be more forceful. They'd say, we need to have a Nike runner at a race. Or Neil would go, we need to get an Allegheny runner in this race. And I think, Neil, I'm tired. And he didn't realize that I was tired. I could run the training, but I can't keep hammering these races because every time I showed up to race, everybody was there. It was the same groups. There was no easy races. They were all tough guys. That was tough. there. And now I would know better. I could say, I can't run that race. I'm going to pick and choose my races more. But it was so new to me then. Oh, the travel. Oh, I was still pretty young. I think I was 22 or something like that, maybe when I won the 12s. I might have just turned 23. I was going to somewhere in that range. It all was so exciting. And I got to meet a lot of people. I never would have met them otherwise. I went to China with Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
I went to Hawaii. What was it? I forget the writer. Can't think of his name, though. Johnny Depp was in a movie by him. I can't even think what his name is now.
What was Ken Kesey doing on a trip?
Oh, he went to write about the race.
Ah,
Nike sent him over and he wrote about it. That's when Nike had Running Magazine. And Ken wrote some articles for Nike Magazine, a couple of different ones, not just that one. And when they called and said, you want to go to China? I was like, well, kind of. And they said, Ken Kesey. I said, well, I could get to meet Ken Kesey. He's some icon to me. I went, I'm going just to meet him. He was such a character, really, that he was just, it was an unforgettable time to be with him. And I was there a couple of weeks, going over, staying there, and it was just really a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of different people like that I even forget now, all these different celebrity type people that you would be somewhere. And, I was young and just wide-eyed all the time, like, oh, look who I met. Look who's here. That was all great. But it kind of shortened my running career a little bit there because I got injured and I just couldn't come back. It was too hard. I didn't run like 1983 or something. I ran a couple of weeks in January and then I didn't run anymore the rest of the year. I didn't run the following year till almost the end. And I'll tell you, this is after seeing doctors. I was talking to Sam Baer
from Pittsburgh, yeah.
One of the best milers in the world in the 60s. And he coached at Allegheny Community College. He was on the Allegheny Nike team. I'm talking to him about this problem. And he gave me some exercises to do to strengthen my hip flexors. And I started doing them and I rehabilitated my one hamstring was much weaker than the other. And all of a sudden I could run again. And I was running pain-free. And how about that? I should just talk to Sam 2 years ago. And so I just ran just to run again. It's fun to be a runner. I took this odd job. I got mugged. I was working at a silkscreen company and we got slow in the winter. And I took a job delivering pizzas at night and I got mugged. Guy hit me with a pipe. I went after him. All of a sudden I realized I couldn't see him because I had blood running down my eyes. And so it was like another 6 months. I had all this surgery done. I couldn't run for 6 months. Then I start running a little bit again. And some years are going by now and I'm just getting older. And then it's in my 30s. The runner who started me running, Lee Foster, I said back at the beginning, he's the reason I started. We said, you want to go out for the track team?
Right.
We ran together a lot in high school. He was at Edinboro. We ran there. We ran afterwards. He was killed in a freak accident in 1984. Wow. And I went to a memorial race. I want to say 1990. It was somewhere in that range. I went to watch. They had a memorial run for him, a 5K race. And I think the winner ran 17 minutes. It was a hard course, but I'm standing there going, surely I can run 17 minutes. I'm going to run this race and I'm going to run under 17 minutes. And so I started running with a purpose again. And that was really like I ran 2 miles 3 days a week. And then I ran 3 miles 3 days a week. The same system. I never changed my program ever. So I'm running 5 miles a day, 4 days a week, adding the miles. And the next year I ran 16:42, but I got kicked down at the end. And I started thinking, well, I can run again. And I started running. I'm going to be a master's runner pretty soon. I started running more and more. I was doing the same thing, 80 miles a week, getting them up there. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm getting nowhere. I'm working these construction jobs. The guys I'm working that are 50 look 80. I'm going to die young. I got to go back to school. I have to go back to school and get my degree and get a job because I can't get some of these jobs I want. I didn't want to go to Edinboro. I had this bad feeling, but everywhere I looked at, I'd lose credits. So I went back to Edinboro. I stopped to visit. I see Coach Watts one day and I said, hi. And he goes, hi, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to school. He goes, where? I go, here. And he goes, you've got eligibility left. I go, I don't want to. I said, I want to run a marathon this fall. And he goes, you can do that. But I turned out to make the top 7 and I couldn't run the marathon. And so now I'm on the team and I'm not really in good shape yet, but I made the top squad to get the national meet. I made a provisional time to get to the track season for the national meet. And then after all my hard feelings with Watts earlier, he ends up hiring me as assistant coach. And I'm back at Edinboro again now in a coaching capacity. And if it had been 1 year later, I think I would have been an All American, because the next year it was all those miles again. I started clicking. I was a Masters runner now, and Masters running all of a sudden was a big deal. There was a Masters circuit. I started running Masters races. Usually, if I didn't win a race, I usually was the Master winner, and usually I set the Masters record in whatever. I started running a lot of marathons, but a lot of other distances. I ran some good Masters races, although I thought I could set the 10,000 meter Masters record, and Steve Placencia came along after me, and he put it out of my reach. I couldn't. It was gone. But I ran some good Masters races, and then I met my wife.
It was at Edinboro?
She was getting her master's degree at Edinboro when I was back there. And so now we're kind of seeing each other. And we went to a couple of races together. And then the next thing you know, I was a master's runner. And so I'm going to all these master's races, and she's coming with me. There came a point, I wanted to do some ultra marathons, and they always interfered because track season. I'm always happen to be at the college meets. So I quit coaching, and the two of us start going to ultra marathons. We went down to Dallas and ran the Dallas 5:0 50 mile. I won the men's, she won the women's. And
wow.
Either I read an ultra running magazine or somewhere I read where if you could break 6 hours, you get consideration to be on the world team. So that's what I'm doing. I went to the Almost Heaven Marathon in December. I think I finished third overall. I won the Masters race. The guy behind me in the race, I didn't know who it was till I saw the results, was Mark Godell. He is on several world 100 kilometer ultra teams.
Yeah.
And he actually set the American record at 24 hours 1 year. I see him. I go, Mark, what should I do? I'm going to run a 50-mile race. And he goes, eat a peanut butter sandwich at 20 miles. And that's what I did. It was a loop, 3-mile loop course. And I had my drinks and everything. And I had a peanut butter sandwich at 20 miles. And I was running like a 5:57 pace the whole race. And then I made the naivety mistake of an ultra runner. I skipped the last aid station because I was feeling so good.
Yeah.
And within 200 yards of the finish, I started getting lightheaded, and I could see the clock ticking. And I ended up running 6 hours and 25 seconds. So
wow.
I missed the 6-hour cutoff, but I knew I could run then. I said, I can do this.
Yeah.
I ran a couple. I ran a Niagara 50. I won that. My wife won the women's. That was a hotter day. It was almost 100 degrees. I ran a little slower, but it was a better race. I was the second fastest 12-hour run that year. I ran 80 miles. They only measured in mile increments. The guy that ran more than me ran 80.2 at a different race. I could have done more. I just didn't think I could run another mile in 7 minutes that day. I had 7 minutes left. I ran the 100K national championships. I was maybe in the top 10 there the following year. And then the two of us went west. We were headed to Bozeman, Montana. We stopped in Gary Owen on the Crow Indian Reservation. And my wife went in the gas station. The guy said, you look like a runner. There's a half marathon race here tomorrow. And we're like, oh, this would be great. We've never run a race on the Indian Reservation before. Let's stick around. I won, and she was second behind me. And when we finished the race, two guys at the finish line that with the Indian Health Services said, what are you guys doing here? Where are you from? And we said, we're out here kind of looking for jobs. And they go, we're on the school board at Lodgegrass School, and there's 2 openings. We got hired. We drove back home and sold our house and moved out.
Oh my God. Ken Kesey's less interesting than you.
Our house sold within 2 weeks. We couldn't even believe it. Went out and it sold, and we were gone. We moved out. We lived right on the reservation. We rented a property there. I didn't want to coach anymore. I just want to go. But when I got there, we saved you guys coaching jobs.
Wow. Yeah.
I got a note or an email, something I got from them, that the time I had run at the 100K national championships qualified me as a master's to go to the world championship in the Netherlands. Look at this. This is all just falling up, but I'm not. I'm staying here now. I'm done with this traveling.
Huh.
So I passed that up. I'm going to live on the reservation. I'm just worrying about teaching now. The two of us are teaching. We went to a couple races. I think we went out the American River 50 and ran it. We went up to the La Grizz 50 mile, ran that. We ran a few races around Montana. Wasn't a big deal. We kind of just raced more fun, but we ran well. I think it was 2002. She won the 32 mile at the Wild and Scenic Bighorn Trail Run that's in Wyoming.
Mhm.
We decided to run 100-mile together at the Bighorn Run. And we'd never done it before. We ran together. We ran just to finish.
Yeah.
And I'm getting older now. I think it was almost 50. I don't have any big goals anymore at that point, just enjoying running. And the ultra community was like that runners back when I was just coming out of high school, college. It was the same kind of mentality in a way. We just run because we love to run. There's no money in it. It was almost like a step back in time to run with the ultra runners.
Yeah.
We ran the 100-mile, and then I ran a couple more 100 miles afterwards. But my daughter was born, and my wife didn't want to run any more of those sketchy 100-mile races because you go through something in those 100-mile races. I remember we ran the Niagara 50-mile run. I had finished and went back to wait for her, and it was just a path. It was a paved path. There was no other way but to keep going. She stopped. She said, "I'm lost. I don't know where I am." She had lost it. She was delirious.
Yeah.
In 100, sometimes those things happen to you too. I ran a few other hundreds in other places, and I did a 24-hour run. Probably the last good ultra I ran. It was in Cleveland, actually. I was in the Grand Masters division. I was a silver medalist. And I don't know if there was a world championship or not coming up, but I wasn't interested then. I didn't want to travel anymore. I was done with that.
What happened to your body over these 35, 40 years of running?
I didn't have any problem. Like people say your knees and that. No, I had over 100,000 miles that I knew I had logged. Amby Burfoot had a 100,000-mile club. And I'm in it somewhere in there with guys that it's all on your honor that you've done it. I kept the log all those years. Other than those injuries from racing, that over racing, I never had no knee issues, no hip issues. I just felt good running. But there came a point there when I don't even know I heard about that. That might have been Gary Allen. We were like 5 guys at the time that had done 5 decades of sub 3 hours. And I thought, how hard can it be? How hard can it be? I'm going to go run a marathon, but I hadn't run a marathon in a long time. The last marathon I'd won was the Montana Marathon in 2000. I won the men's and my wife won the women's. The first time we had won a marathon together. And that was a 24-year span from my first win to that win.
Wow.
So I quit running. I started doing those ultra marathons, but I could not break 3 hours in the marathon. I was not feeling real good about it. And I went to a doctor and they did tests on me all day long. Everything, the EKGs, the radioactive isotopes, the stress, all this stuff they did. I was there all day long. They go, "Oh, we can't find anything wrong with you."
You've gotten old. You've gotten old.
I said, "I don't feel like myself." And that's what they said. "You're getting older." I said, "I know I'm getting older, but I'm just suddenly not feeling good." I was going to go to some races and I backed off. I said, I don't feel like it. And I started going to a gym to lift weights. I thought maybe that's what I need. I started running less and lifting more. And then there was the Wyoming Senior Olympics. It was low key. I went there and bench pressed and won in my 60 and over weight. I was now 60 years old. And I thought, this must be what I've fallen to. I'm doing these hokey things. And then I found out, I looked up USA Powerlifting. That's a federation. It's a national federation, but they compete internationally. I registered and went to a meet. I didn't know what I was doing. There's all kinds of rules you have to follow on what you can wear and what you can do, and you have to follow commands. And I won this Wyoming State Championship for my weight class and age group. That's 60 and up. The national championship was in Sioux Falls that year. It was pretty close to me. I thought, I'm going to go. Why not? And I didn't win that. But coming out of it, because of that and my earlier performance, I got selected to go to the World Championships in the bench press in the Czech Republic. How can this be? I've been in the wrong sport my whole life.
I don't think Jeff was in the wrong sport his whole life, but he had discovered a new sport to compete in and excel in. We'll be back in the next episode to talk about his experiences with powerlifting and cover a lot more again about running and his whole life since running in the 70s. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.